Hello everyone. Welcome to Postcard Buddhism, the best channel for sharing knowledge about Buddhism. Today we will talk about the topic, the concept of emptiness in Buddhism. Understanding this profound teaching can help us see the true nature of reality and deepen our spiritual practice. Let's explore how this concept is presented in the Heart Sutra and its significance in our daily lives. The concept of emptiness in Buddhism. In Buddhism, meditation is considered a prevalent practice, but in reality, meditation is applied in all aspects of life without people even realizing it. For example, in modern scientific fields, the term meditation is understood as the process of research and using all stages of thinking to find practical applications to serve human life. If this research yields ultimate, successful results that can be applied for the benefit of life, it is called an invention. However, all scientific and technical inventions are aimed at serving humans in the material world to make life easier, more convenient, and to bring people closer together. For example, when scientists discover and launch satellites into Earth's orbit, nowadays everyone has a mobile phone and can watch live broadcasts of the World Cup on TV anywhere. Similarly, a doctor, before prescribing medication, must contemplate and examine to diagnose the patient's illness, thus unknowingly engaging in meditation multiple times daily. A student thinking about solving a math equation or a homemaker planning the family dinner are also forms of meditation. In summary, meditation is the process of contemplating and thoroughly understanding a particular object. What about the Mahayana concept of emptiness? For bodhisattvas, not only do they see the world as impermanent, suffering, and without self like the Shravakas, but they also perceive the true nature of phenomena as formless. What is formlessness? From the bodhisattva's perspective, the world is illusory and unreal, appearing as though it exists but is essentially empty. This is form as emptiness, meaning that although phenomena seem to exist, bodhisattvas do not cling to their apparent existence, so they appear as empty. Thus, bodhisattvas perceive both selflessness and the emptiness of all phenomena, unlike the Shravakas who only see selflessness. Consequently, Mahayana thought asserts that all phenomena are empty, conditionally arising like illusions, and thus bodhisattvas do not cling to the existence of the universe. Although phenomena appear to exist, in their minds, they are empty, which prevents them from needing to renounce the world and yet not being tainted by it, maintaining a state of nirvanic purity. For instance, Shravakas see human beings being born, aging, becoming ill, and eventually dying, which causes them to fear and despise the cycle of birth and death. Conversely, bodhisattvas contemplate the unborn nature of phenomena, meaning they see both birth and death as part of the cycle of existence. For example, when looking at a flower bud, one can see its unborn nature because the bud's blooming already contains the seed of its withering. Conversely, when it withers, bodhisattvas see it as the beginning of a new cycle of birth. Thus, birth and death, life and decay are endless cycles, making birth and death ordinary and not to be feared. In summary, from the Theravada perspective, life is impermanent, subject to decay, here today and gone tomorrow, prompting them to strive for nirvana to escape the cycle of birth and death. From the bodhisattva's enlightened view, all phenomena are empty, meaning the universe exists but is essentially empty, continuously cycling between birth and death. Unafraid of birth and death, they live joyfully and freely, unbound by attachment. Understanding and overcoming attachment means that their mind is always tranquil, with the Buddha nature manifesting without needing to seek enlightenment. Some meditators mistakenly think that contemplating and making everything in the world vanish into nothingness is Buddhist meditation, but this only leads to greater suffering and delusion. The emptiness in Buddhism means not being attached to desires and illusions, not trying to use supernatural powers to make everything disappear. The Buddha lived in a world full of material comforts like ours, but through the eyes of an enlightened being, everything was seen as empty and thus unclingable. Seeking emptiness out of aversion to the world's suffering leads to the same suffering. True emptiness in Buddhism is not about making things disappear, but realizing their impermanent, conditioned nature and not clinging to them. All beings possess inherent wisdom to directly perceive the truth, and the innate purity of Buddha nature is present in everyone. This innate purity does not require achieving nirvana. Enlightenment and Buddha nature are inherently present, not something attained through practice. When deluded, one does not recognize their inherent Buddha nature. When awakened, it becomes apparent, just like having a precious gem in one's pocket without realizing it. But once discovered, all suffering ceases. In the Heart Sutra it states, there is no wisdom and there is no attainment. In the inherent nature of emptiness, there is no wisdom or attainment because they are inherently present. The Diamond Sutra also teaches that the Tathagata Buddha does not attain the supreme enlightenment. The Tathagata is respected because they are free from self, others, sentient beings, and lifespan. The Tathagata perceives all phenomena with equanimity, without attachment, and always abides in virtuous conduct. Practicing Buddhism is described as returning to the other shore. The Buddha, like a person on the shore, sees sentient beings initially also on the shore, but deluded by desires and ignorance. They venture into the vast ocean, facing endless suffering. By following the Buddha's teachings and returning, they can reach the shore and live peacefully like the Buddha. This is the essence of returning to the other shore. In essence, the supreme enlightenment is not exclusive to the Tathagata. If all beings turn to their innate purity, the Buddha nature within them, they will achieve enlightenment. Therefore, all the countless methods in Buddhism aim to help beings return to the shore and live with their enlightened nature, inherently pure and bright. Returning to the shore, the true nature of the mind and Buddha nature manifest, allowing beings to live with clarity, tranquility, and bliss. The meaning of emptiness in Buddhism. In everyday language, the word emptiness is one of the most frequently spoken and written words, often used in phrases such as not to be, not to have, not to do, not to think, not to like, opposed to be, to have, to do, to think, to like. Emptiness can also mean nothingness, implying a state of being empty. Regardless of its meaning, emptiness refers to a reality or existence, as whether something exists or does not exist, it still engages the senses. However, when the term emptiness is used in Buddhist philosophy, its meaning transcends common language, becoming complex and abstract, challenging for everyone, including some practicing Buddhists, to grasp. This difficulty arises because the mind is accustomed to the conventional meaning of emptiness. The Sanskrit term for emptiness is shunyata, and in Pali it is sunya, translated into English as emptiness, nothingness, voidness, which generally means the same as the Vietnamese term and the meanings derived from it. Moreover, different Buddhist schools interpret emptiness in various ways. The term emptiness does not refer to a physical or psychological void or nihilism. In the Pali Canon, among the earliest Buddhist scriptures, the Buddha often denied the existence of a self through the concept of emptiness. The famous text Milinda Panya, Questions of Milinda or Natian Bhikshu, narrates an interesting story where Bhikshu Natian helps King Milinda understand the selflessness of all phenomena, including the self, anatta, through an analogy. Pointing to the king's chariot, he asks, "What is the essence of this chariot? Is it in the wheels, in the axle, in the frame, in the yoke?" Thus, the chariot has no inherent nature. None of the parts comprising the chariot contain its essence, and each part, when broken down into smaller components, also lacks a singular essence. Like the chariot, the self we hold dear is nothing more than a temporary aggregation of various elements: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. That self is empty. Emptiness can be understood as lacking inherent nature. The chariot lacks inherent nature because it does not exist as an independent, separate entity. Similarly, people in all phenomena lack inherent nature. To initially conceptualize emptiness, the Buddha used simple metaphors like an empty house. Bhikkhus, there are empty huts, meditate there. Through this simple story, those studying Buddhism can understand the core teaching of anatta, non-self. Just as a room can be empty of furniture, the mind and body are empty of self and anything belonging to the self. Thus, emptiness is synonymous with non-self, and non-self is emptiness. The Buddha said to his attendant Ananda, in one of the 2 discourses on emptiness, Sanatta Sutta, "I often dwell in emptiness," and he described a meditation practice where the objects of perception gradually become more refined until one realizes that this realm of perception is merely empty. At that point, emptiness becomes almost synonymous with nirvana, which is defined in many sutras as a mind empty of greed, hatred, and delusion. The eminent Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna, in the 2nd century, elevated the concept of emptiness in his treatises by elucidating the implications of the Buddhist teachings on impermanence and dependent origination. Everything is in a process of arising and passing away, always becoming, and thus never truly being. Conditioned by countless interdependent causes, all things are empty, of any independent or intrinsic nature, and thus require no further explanation. Later Buddhist philosophical schools expanded the concept of emptiness to include all phenomena in the world. This is reflected in Mahayana scriptures, most notably the Heart Sutra. In this concise text, the term emptiness is repeated many times, indicating that emptiness is the core of the sutra. For instance, form is no different from emptiness. Emptiness is no different from form. Form is exactly emptiness. Emptiness is exactly form. Sensation, perception, mental formation, and consciousness are also like this. Everything depends on something else, and nothing exists in an independent and enduring manner. This sutra further teaches that emptiness is the nature of all phenomena, thereby extending the psychological insight to recognize that if one is empty of self, one will arrive at a comprehensive metaphysical view that all phenomena are empty by nature. Some Buddhist schools go further, asserting that everything we perceive depends on the mind for its perceived existence. Mind-only school, and thus everything is empty of intrinsic nature. Nothing possesses intrinsic existence, even the tiniest particles in the mind itself. All are interrelated, and all are empty. When Mahayana Buddhism entered China and later Japan, the concept of emptiness evolved in 3 directions. 1. Along with the complementary idea of thusness, tathata, suchness, the Tiantai school enriched emptiness by developing the concept of a universal Buddha nature inherent in all beings. 2. The Huayan school, encompassing both suchness and emptiness, emphasized the thorough interpenetration of all phenomena. 3. The integration of Taoist Wu Wei, non-action, with the no-mind, Wuxin, or no-thought, Wunian, in Chinese Zen or Japanese Zen Buddhism encouraged an approach free from form. Correctly understood, nothing exists since it disappears, and nothing does not exist since it occurs. Rather, it is simply empty, requiring a non-conceptual intuition of wisdom, like Kensho or Satori in Japanese Zen. Mahayana Buddhist scriptures center around the concept of emptiness. What about Theravada Buddhism? I will refer to a piece by Venerable Thanissaro Bhikkhu, a monk who practices meditation and has published numerous works on Buddhism in the West. Emptiness is a mode of perception, a way of looking at experience. It doesn't add anything to or take anything away from the raw data of physical and mental events. You look at events in the mind and the senses without the assumption of whether there's anything behind them. This mode is called empty because it's empty of the presuppositions we usually add to experience to make sense of it. The stories and worldviews we fashion to explain who we are and the world we live in. Although those stories and views have their uses, the Buddha discovered that the questions they raise of our true identity and the reality of the world outside pull attention away from the direct experience of events happening at the immediate present moment. Thus, they get in the way when we're trying to understand and solve the problem of suffering. For instance, suppose you're meditating and a feeling of anger arises, directed at your mother. The immediate reaction of your mind is to identify with the anger as my anger or I am angry. Then, you embellish the feeling by inserting it into a narrative about your relationship with your mother, or according to your general views on when and where anger toward one's mother might be justified. According to the Buddha, these stories and views bring a lot of suffering. The more you get involved in them, the more distracted you become from seeing the actual cause of suffering. The labels of I and my that have been placed on the entire process. As a result, you can't find a way to unravel that cause and bring the suffering to an end. However, if you apply the mode of emptiness, by not acting on or reacting to the anger, but simply observing it as a series of events in and of themselves, you can see that the anger is empty, with nothing to identify with or possess. As you become more adept at maintaining this mode of emptiness, you find that this truth applies not only to coarse emotions like anger, but also to the most subtle events in the realm of experience. Could it be that the practice of satipatthana, a meditation method established by the Buddha for contemplating the body and mind, beginning with breath meditation, helps one master this mode of emptiness? Many Buddhists and non-Buddhists with a cultural and intellectual background often delve into the teachings, analyzing each word. This is natural and reasonable, but in my humble opinion, no amount of reading can resolve all doubts. However, if we read the Buddha's teachings, reflect on life, live within the Triple Gem, and observe the lives of our teachers, study and practice will connect, helping us progress on the path. The understanding of emptiness will gently come to us at different times without us needing to know. This is important, for the teachings are vast, and it is not unusual if we do not grasp all the basics. It all depends on conditions. Returning to the concept of emptiness, Venerable Thanissaro Bhikkhu's perspective is very close to daily life, providing guidance on the path of practice. From this foundation, we can gradually delve into the Mahayana concept of emptiness. In general, the concept of emptiness teaches us to reduce the ego, lessen greed, hatred, and delusion, and avoid clinging to the unreal notions of self and mine, so we can breathe the fresh air naturally without needing to analyze it. The meaning of emptiness in the Heart Sutra. In Buddhist practice, attachment to the concept of existence prevents one from fully understanding the true nature of reality. However, attachment to non-existence, even as small as a mustard seed, is a significant hindrance. This is why ancient teachers often cautioned against clinging to the notion of emptiness. Yet the Heart Sutra repeatedly states that everything is empty. No eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no forms, no sounds, no smells, no tastes, no touch. While the sutra speaks of emptiness, earlier teachers advise not to grasp at emptiness. How do these two notions of emptiness differ? This is a critical point I wish to clarify for all monks, nuns, and Buddhists, to ensure that our path to enlightenment is not obstructed, but can progress more swiftly. To understand the concept of emptiness in the Heart Sutra, or the entire Prajnaparamita, Perfection of Wisdom teachings, we must first firmly grasp the doctrine of dependent origination, pratitya samutpad. Without a solid understanding of dependent origination, one can never comprehend the meaning of emptiness in the Heart Sutra. The emptiness in the Heart Sutra is grounded in the principle of dependent origination. If dependent origination is the truth, then emptiness is also the truth. Let us first examine whether any phenomena in this world are not products of dependent origination. For instance, when we look at a temple, where does it come from? Everyone knows it results from the combination of workers, architects, bricks, sand, stones, cement, etc. It never comes into being by itself. It requires the gathering of numerous conditions. Dependent origination means that things arise from the combination of many factors. Similarly, all phenomena in this world arise from dependent origination. Recently, scientists studying Buddhism have recognized that the Buddhist principle of dependent origination aligns closely with scientific understanding. Science involves analyzing things, and analysis reveals that nothing exists independently. Everything is a combination of many components. Hence, nothing can exist with just one cause or condition. It is a complex interaction of multiple causes and conditions. This reveals the clarity and detail of the Buddha's insight over 2,000 years ago. Things do not exist inherently, nor do they arise by chance or through the actions of a creator. They exist only when conditions come together and dissipate when conditions are lacking. The Buddha's teachings clarify this so that we no longer mistakenly believe that things exist independently or by chance. From a house to a table or chair, nothing exists independently. Everything arises from conditions. Even plants and trees, as well as humans, are born from dependent origination. For humans, it is as simple as the combination of father's sperm and mother's egg. Modern medical science further analyzes this into billions of cells that interact and function together. As long as they function properly, we live. When they deteriorate, the body disintegrates. Thus, nothing in this world escapes the principle of dependent origination. For example, consider a clock. What is its essence? We cannot say the hands, the numbers, or any part is the essence. It is the combination of all parts that forms the clock. When the parts are assembled, the clock exists. When they disperse, the clock ceases to exist. Though we see the clock before us, its essence is not truly existent. It is a temporary assembly, not an independent entity. This is why the Buddha said, "One who sees dependent origination sees the Dharma. One who sees the Dharma sees the Buddha." This underscores the importance of understanding dependent origination. Similarly, humans and all things in this world arise from dependent origination, hence lacking an independent, permanent essence. Though lacking a permanent essence, things still appear when conditions are right. Understanding this, we can move to the second step, the concept of emptiness in the Heart Sutra. We should not mistakenly think that emptiness in the Heart Sutra means nothingness or void. Emptiness is relative to existence. In this context, emptiness means that while things appear to exist, their essence is empty. They have no permanent, independent existence. Thus, though things appear tangible, they are essentially empty due to their dependent origination. Therefore, emptiness in the Heart Sutra is referred to as self-nature emptiness or intrinsic emptiness, meaning things have no independent essence but have a temporary form when conditions are right. Humans too arise from dependent origination without a permanent, independent essence. Thus, can we call it self? It is a temporary self, existing and ceasing according to conditions, with no inherent value. Yet we mistakenly believe in a permanent self and reality. This misunderstanding is called ignorance or delusion in Buddhism. Buddhists must develop wisdom to see things as they truly are, understanding the Buddha's teachings deeply and guiding others accordingly. Reflect on whether our body is permanent or temporary. If it were permanent, it would never decay. Due to dependent origination, our body becomes ill and eventually deteriorates. This is the undeniable truth. Therefore, the emptiness in the Heart Sutra refers to the absence of inherent essence, not absolute voidness. People often mistake emptiness for absolute voidness, seeing objects as real and space as void. However, the emptiness in the Heart Sutra refers to the lack of inherent essence and permanence. Thus, the Buddha said the body is non-self because it lacks a permanent essence and is subject to dependent origination and disintegration. Understanding the true meaning of emptiness, we recognize that the phenomena we perceive are neither truly existent nor non-existent. To say they truly exist or do not exist is incorrect. They are temporary forms arising from conditions. This leads to the Buddhist view that things are like illusions or transformations. Reflecting on this, I recall the poem by Zen master Tu Dao Han of the Lai dynasty. Exists, yet like grains of sand. Doesn't exist, yet like everything void. Existence and non-existence are like moonlight in water. Don't be attached to existence or non-existence. Tu Dao Han's imagery illustrates the dynamic nature of things. If we say things exist, they all seem to exist. Why? Because in their apparent forms, they are tangible. If we say they do not exist, they all seem not to exist because they are temporary assemblies. Therefore, existence and non-existence are like moonlight reflected in water. On a full moon night, looking at the water's surface, we see the moon reflected. Is the moon in the water real or not? If it were real, why can't we scoop it out? If it were not real, why do we see it clearly? Hence, it is a mere reflection, not absolute voidness, but not real either. Everything in this world is like the moon's reflection in water, appearing real but lacking inherent essence. Thus, things exist in a transient form, but their essence is empty. Misunderstanding this, people often cling to the perceived reality of phenomena, leading to attachment and suffering. Recognizing the transient nature of things, we understand that nothing is worth clinging to, thereby liberating ourselves from suffering. This is the profound insight of Buddhism. We find it challenging to progress in our practice because we see things as real, leading to attachment and obstacles in our path. However, seeing things as transient, we realize there is nothing to cling to, making the path much easier. Therefore, ignorance, the root of our misperceptions, is the cause of suffering. With wisdom, we see through our delusions, overcoming suffering. This understanding of emptiness leads to liberation, allowing us to navigate life without attachment. Some may argue that if everything is illusory and temporary, there is no need to do anything, leading to a nihilistic outlook. However, this view overlooks the essential balance between wisdom and compassion in Buddhism. while wisdom, prajnaparamita, reveals the emptiness and transient nature of all phenomena. Compassion, karuna, motivates us to alleviate the suffering of sentient beings. Therefore, a true Buddhist cultivates both wisdom and compassion, recognizing the illusory nature of suffering, but actively working to relieve it. Thus, the practice of Buddhism involves not only understanding the emptiness of all phenomena, but also engaging in compassionate actions to help others. This dual practice of wisdom and compassion embodies the true spirit of Buddhism, guiding us toward enlightenment while alleviating the suffering of others. This is the essence of the Heart Sutra's teaching on emptiness and its practical application in our daily lives. Thank you for listening. If you found this video helpful, please share it with those who might benefit from it. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Hit the like button, follow, and turn on the notification bell. This is how you can show your support for me. Once again, thank you very much, and see you in the next videos.